Now, I'm going to talk about molecular collapse of evolution. There is a big question in front of the evolution that blocks every other steps. How did life begin on Earth? Evolution tells to that question that life began on Earth with a single cell suddenly appears. But we know that there is no room for chance in nature. Not even a single person could ever build a single cell with the advanced technologies of 20th century. Now, I will talk about some of the evolutionist scientists' confessions about this subject, about the origin of life. For example, here is the Alexander Oparin. He is a Russian evolutionist. He wrote a book in 1936 and it's called The Origin of Life. In his book, he confesses about how he doesn't know the answer of the origin of life. And he says in here that, unfortunately, however, the problem of the origin of the cell is perhaps the most obscure point in the whole study of the evolution of organisms. Lots of scientists try to find out that the cell might appear by coincidence, but every experiment they found that it is impossible. The cell is too complex to appear by coincidence or by chance. Here you can see the Professor Klaus Dose. He is the president of the biochemistry department of the Johannes Gutenberg Institute in Germany. And also he confesses about his experiments. And here he says that at the present, all discussions and principal theories and experiments in the field either end in statement or in a confession of ignorance. And now you can see the Jeffrey Bada. He is a geochemist in the San Diego Scripps Institute. He is confessing about himself and also other evolutionists' helpless situation while they are coming to the end of the 20th century. And he says that they have still the same question: how did life originate on Earth? On the Darwin's day, the Darwin didn't know that the cell was too complex. With the simple microscopes, they see the cell just like a stain. And Darwin and his followers, they thought that the cell might appear just by coincidence and easily. But in the 20th century, with the advanced technologies, with the electron microscopes, we know that the cell is too complex to appear by chance. And Darwin and his followers, they thought the evolution theory, and they based this theory on this delusion, the chance. And the cell is too complex to appear by coincidence because when we look into a cell, we can see that it has some power stations and it has some transferring systems in it, that it carries some raw materials from one place to another in the cell. And also we can see that it has a data bank to collect all the, to report all the information about the products. And also it has some city guards that control everything that comes into the cell or goes out of the cell. We can compare it with a city like New York or London or Paris maybe. But it's crowded as a city, and also complex like a city. And W. Heathrow, also an evolutionary scientist, he confesses about this subject. And he says that even an elementary type of a cell's mechanism is too complex than any machine that human being ever thought or even imagined. Artificial cell works are stopped in the 21st century, as we know that scientists now understood that the cell is too complex to be made by the artificial ones, and they stopped these works. We can give an example for this. For example, assume that there is a publishing company, and an explosion happens in this company, and then suddenly a dictionary appears. And when you open this dictionary, you can see that every word, every sentence is located on their correct place. And when you read this book, this dictionary, you understand something. It means it's meaningful. Do you believe in that? I think not. And also I can say that with the mathematical calculations, the cell's appearance by chance is more impossible than this story that I have told you. It is an irrefutable truth that everything, every living thing on Earth, from a single cell to a plant, from an animal to a human being, everything, all of them are created by the superior creator, by God. Now I'm going to talk about the molecular collapse of evolution as the protein's formation. Evolution used to be known as a proved theory, but now with the 20th century's advanced technologies, we know that it is now illogical and also a ridiculous idea. We can know that if someone knows something about the protein's formation in a cell, he can easily think that no chance might be happen in this situation, because proteins has a perfect design. Actually, when we think about a cell producing a protein, we can say that it needs an energy producer and also some workers and also a factory to produce the protein. And also, when we see a cell producing a protein, we can easily understand that there is a traffic while he is producing proteins. Because while he is building some proteins, he is breaking down some others at the same moment. And when we think about the protein structure, we can understand that it can only be built by an excellent mind. Proteins are giant molecules that are formed from amino acids. We can say amino acids like you can think them like marbles arranged on a string. There are three necessities for an effective protein's production. First necessity is the number and order of these amino acids. These amino acids should be at the same time, they should be at the right place, and also their number is very important. Just one missing amino acid will break down the 3D formation of the protein, and also it destroys the protein's effectiveness. Or the same situation is also again possible for an extra amino acid adding to the protein's formation. It all destroys the protein. So the order and the number of the amino acids is very important. For the second necessity, the correct chemical structure of the amino acid is very important. In nature, we can see that amino acids have one right-handed form and one left-handed form. It's common in nature and they can bind to each other easily. There is no problem for them in nature. But when we consider about the living organisms, when we investigate them, we see that they are all left-handed amino acids. And this is a very important point because we can understand that cell destroys its protein and it does not contain any right-handed amino acids. For the third necessity, the binding features of the amino acids is very important because there are lots of molecules in the universe and they have to bind to each other, and there are lots of bounding features, but amino acids use only the peptide boundings. And we can give an example as a car. Imagine there is a full accessorized and also it has a perfect engine, a perfect car right behind you. But when you detailedly investigate it, you see that there is one of the wheel of it is wired to the car, not screwed. Do you think that it can move? No way. So you can compare it with the amino acids and their peptide boundings. If they don't bound to each other with the peptide boundings, it cannot work. We can say that the cells, according to the cell's needs, the cell might produce a protein consist of 50 amino acids or thousands of amino acids containing. And there are three necessities we need when it's produced by a protein. We say that, first of all, the order and the number of the amino acids, and then their bounding types, and all have to be left-handed. So think of a regular protein in a cell, like consists of 500 amino acids. When they calculate the chance of the three necessities come into being with this protein consisting of 500 amino acids, they found that it is the chance of 1 in 10 to the power of 950. This is a big number, it's an astronomical number. Imagine that you write these 950 zeros right to the number 1. You cannot even write it on a paper. It's so big and astronomical. And also for the mathematical calculations, 1 in 10 to the power of 50 is called 0. So it means the impossible. So we are talking about something impossible in here. all the evidence from now on I'm talking about show you that evolution is helpless about this question, about this situation. And when you think of a complex living structure, I'm just talking about now on, just a protein consists of 500 amino acids. Think of your cells. A trillion cell make you. You have trillion cells. And every cell, like they have to produce 200 proteins. And also they have to produce these proteins in a moment and break it down, and then again it has to produce it. And think of it, I cannot actually calculate the number if it was by chance. And now we can say that, we can say that evolutionists are persuading themselves to believe in evolution, but science is proving creation. Now we will continue with the Miller experiment for the molecular collapse of evolution. For the evolutionists, Miller experiment is the basic of the molecular evolution. But with the 20th century's advanced technologies, now we know that it is just a disaster for the theory. It was all beginning with just one question: how life originate on Earth? Harold Urey and Stanley Miller are two scientists who tried to find out that cell might appear by coincidence on Earth. And Stanley Miller took a big glass balloon and filled it with some gases, like ammonia, methane, hydrogen, and water vapor. And he used in this balloon and boiled it to the 100 centigrade degrees for 1 week. And he said that he used electricity because he assumed that there were lightnings in the primordial Earth. And with the end of the experiment, after 1 week, he found that there were 3 amino acids that are essential for life, for the living things, and in this mixture. And also every evolutionist were caused excitement, and they were so excited and surprised that they were written on newspapers and magazines and everywhere that Miller just created life, but it was just a lie as we know it. And he was just animated some molecules. And they made up some stories, like amino acids come together and form the proteins. And somehow these proteins come together, and with the help of the lipid molecules, the cells formed. And with these cells come together and the organism's origin. But it was just a lie, because all of them depending on just a fake experiment, the Miller experiment. Why this Miller experiment was a fake? Let's talk about it. Because first of all, they used wrong gases. At that time, there were no ammonium or methane, but Miller used ammonium and methane. And they found that in 1980s, some scientists in America studied about this subject, and they found that there was just nitrogen and carbon dioxide. And with carbon dioxide and nitrogen, they repeated the experiment, and they got nothing. And also Miller accepted this situation. And for the second one, the system of the balloon was not suitable for the stable amino acid formation. Because when he produces an amino acid in the balloon, he uses electricity, and it also breaks down easily and suddenly. So he says that he used a method called as the cold trap. But this cold trap was not there while the amino acids was forming in the earth. So this is not true. For the third one, at that time, there was too much oxygen on Earth. And we can see that with the rocks, they are telling us this because they are oxidized. And also there was no ozone layer. And with the ultraviolet light, it comes directly to the Earth on the amino acids and everything on the Earth. And it destroys it easily. And at the last one, he says that he found 3 amino acids. And they can be used in the living things. But when we look in the mixture, we can see that there are lots of amino acids. Maybe some of them are harmful, or maybe some of them is useless. And also amino acids are 2 types in nature. We know that one is right-handed, one is left-handed. And in this mixture, they are both in this mixture. So there's a question appears in here. How did life find its way in these useful and unuseful mixtures of amino acids? And who chose these useful ones and arranged them together? And here we will talk about the Harold Urey, who organized the Miller experiment with his student, and he confesses about this situation. All of us who study the origin of life find that the more we look into it, the more we feel it is too complex to have evolved anywhere. We all believe as an article of faith that life evolved from that matter on this planet. It is just that its complexity is so great. It is hard for us to imagine that it did. As we talked about all the situations in here and all the evidences, Miller disproved himself. And it was a fake experiment because he controlled the conditions as he wanted, and also he added the substances he wanted, and also he eliminated the substances he didn't want. So we can say that even himself didn't want to let the chance to play a role in his experiment. And as Urey said, even all scientists come together with all laboratory equipment and can do everything they want. But science is proving that the life is really created.